Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to talk about the possible future for Total War Warhammer 3 with regards to DLCs for the races already available in-game. You see, many of these have had DLCs throughout Warhammer 1, Warhammer 2 and even Warhammer 3, but could they still get more? And in some cases, yes, in some cases, no. What I want to do here is do a little bit of a chart, going through my knowledge of Warhammer Fantasy, looking for everything and going, okay, yeah, this race could get one or two more DLCs, nothing else could realistically come in for this one, and so on and so forth. It's a little bit of speculation, kind of in the bigger side, but I feel like this game does have a few years left of content left. That obviously very much depends on Creative Assembly's scope, the amount of time that they have left with the IP in terms of Games Workshop allowance. That can actually be extended, by the way, but it very much depends, and obviously how much time Creative Assembly spend on DLCs. Right now, it doesn't look great because, you know, DLCs are coming out once every 8 months or so, but if things get improved in terms of time, that could be very much possible. We know that Creative Assembly Sophia is taking part now in Warhammer 3, so yeah, things could get a little bit quicker as time progresses. So again, this is heavy speculation, and it's not like this is guaranteed, but it's showing the possibility of the lifespan of Warhammer 3 if they do decide to go in full ham, and I kind of hope they do because I really love this game and I'd love to see more for it. But before anything, a big thank you to our sponsors, Instant Gaming, a platform where you'll be able to buy keys for various different products at discounted prices. So if you want to just get yourself some extra games, yep, this is the best place to go. I've been using these myself and we've partnered up for a few months now. You know, as there was a pretty big drought in terms of gaming over the past few years because of the whole COVID situation, a lot of games are coming out nowadays, so picking up titles at a discounted price means that you'll be able to get more games into your account. Not only that, but Instant Gaming are offering a monthly giveaway for my channel where you can win a game of your choice. All you have to do is sign up and just click participate, and that's it. You don't even have to buy a game. And it's a really nice thing. We've been doing them month to month, and well, you know, who doesn't like free stuff? So I really do appreciate the monthly giveaways. A big thank you once again for the sponsor, as it's always really nice, especially during content droughts. It can hurt creators quite heavily, so being able to have a consistent sponsor does keep the channel running until some news starts kicking in. But let's return to our regularly scheduled programming. So what we're going to do here for ease of access is use the tier list maker with all the races, because that means that we can actually just make a little bit of a diagram. It's not really ranking them or anything, it's just it will be easier to explain as we start progressing through the video. And that's what we're going to do, and we're going to go as alphabetically as possible. There's going to be a few different changes here and there though. Alright, we're going to start off with the Beastmen, and yeah, no DLCs but attached to others. And that's pretty simple considering that we've been seeing that already. The Beastmen had a really good DLC which kind of fleshed out the standard style for them, and that was the Silence and the Fury, and then afterwards we've had Monogod DLC which has been adding stuff in for them naturally, Shadows of Change, Thrones of Decay, and so on. I very much doubt that we'll see any more dedicated DLCs for the Beastmen, and that's perfectly fine. They're in a pretty good place. Really, most people have been joking around that they're the true winners of the recent DLC launches, and yeah, I totally agree. They are getting lovely updates, they're getting units every now and then, and they're slowly getting more and more powerful, so that works out quite well. It would be nice to see Legendary Lords and Legendary Heroes implemented through them, but we don't know if that's ever the plan from Creative Assembly. Bretonia's in a weird place, and it really sucks because of that, because they were a free race for Warhammer 1, and they've had an update in Warhammer 2 and Warhammer 3, which didn't work at the beginning, but yeah, just one new content addition, and that's pretty much it after that. I feel like Creative Assembly have gone, yeah, we're not going to do anything else for Bretonia unless it's free, because the rest of the race was free. I kind of see that. I feel like they could justify it if we end up getting something from the old world in terms of units, because now that we're getting end time stuff, it looks like anything attached to Warhammer Fantasy might be possible if Games Workshop agrees, but at this very moment I see them as free content only. You know, Bohemond Beastslayer would be cool. We know that Creative Assembly would like to do that because Rich has spoken about it, and we've seen Bohemond's art in the art book, but yeah, I just don't see much happening there. Alright, so now we're going on to the Chaos Dwarfs, and I don't think they're going to get any more DLCs. It makes sense. They might get some free content, but really there's nothing really missing for them. The Chaos Siege Giant could be easily attached to a Monogod DLC, so it's technically no DLC but attached to others, or they could just make it a free content thing. I don't see it as a really needed unit in all honesty, and I think that's why Creative Assembly left it out. other than that, most Chaos Dwarf stuff has been added in. Sure, some people are going to say, well, the bazookas are missing, but you kind of have that with the Death Shriekers, and I don't think Games Workshop want to acknowledge the ass cannon anymore. So next we're going to talk about all the Monogods and the Demons of Chaos together. You see, the Demons of Chaos is pretty much no DLC but attached to others, because at the end of the day, nothing can really be done for Daniel by himself. There's no real missing undivided demons, barring the whole Demons of Ruinstorm thing, but I think those are firmly just for the 30k franchise. And when it comes to all the other Monogods, I think one more DLC for each and they're done. So I'm not counting whatever the next DLC is called. I don't think they've even given a name out just yet, but I am counting Nurgle and Tzeentch here. So this is something that we need to talk about quite heavily. We've had a Nurgle DLC very recently, but if this next DLC for Khorne does have the Skull Reapers and Wrathmongers, which is very much assumed so since Skull Bloodwrath is going to be the legendary hero, well, that means that the end time stuff is properly available, which, I mean, it is now, right? So that means that we can get another Nurgle DLC. So Blight Kings, Gotrop Spume, the Glotkin, those are all on the table again, which means Nurgle could get another DLC. When it comes to Tzeentch, we don't know exactly where it's coming from. You know, they said that there could be some stuff down the line where for Ygrimme, I do feel like they are missing out on like aspiring champions of Tzeentch. So it could be that they're working with something with Games Workshop to be able to have that. The same thing would have to happen with Slaanesh, as those two Monogods did not have any form of aspiring champions, whereas Khorne and Nurgle did back in the day. That's following the whole thing of Wrathmongers, Skull Reapers, Blight Kings, and so on. So potentially it would mean that Nurgle and Tzeentch would get more DLCs than Khorne and Slaanesh, but I feel like that's perfectly fine. They don't have to be actually balanced in terms of how much content they receive. It's more of the case of, do they feel complete or not? Slaanesh is pretty much done. What we need is Pleasure Seekers and Pleasure Knights, and that's pretty much it, barring a monster or two here and there. If we look for canon available material, you know, Wrathmongers and Skull Reapers for Khorne and stuff like that, and they're pretty much sorted, barring any possible monsters, or the Slaughter Brute that was also confirmed. And then Nurgle right now has had a DLC, but again, you know, add in the Blight Kings, add in the Glotkin, add in something else. They don't have to have the same amount of Legendary Lords and Legendary Heroes also. Okay, we're moving on to the Dark Elves. I think they could get one and be done with it. I'm hoping that the hypothetical Slaanesh DLC, you know, the one that was in the roadmap originally and then disappeared, which pains me, right? The fact that we were going to get Slaanesh content now and then it turned to Khorne. But, hey, if they needed time, it needed time. But I'm hoping that that is going to be Slaanesh versus High Elves versus Dark Elves, something which is very lore-friendly and, to be honest, would be kind of cool, right? It would be a nice time to get the Dark Elves getting some final stuff. It's a bit harder to make stuff for Dark Elves, so that's probably why. Or maybe that wasn't the plan originally. They saw so many people asking for that and they've gone, okay, we've got to change the course, so something else has to come in first. Either way, the Dark Elves could do a nice facelift and we could start getting unique mechanics. Honestly, after what they did with the Empire, where everyone now feels fairly different, that's my hope for everyone by the end of the lifespan. We're going to skip ahead and just put the High Elves on one DLC also, because I could see them being attached, and to be honest, what's missing is the High Elf Sea Patrol. Now, I'm really curious about this, because I feel it's going to be possible, especially since it looks like Games Workshop might be bringing back the High Elf Sea Patrol for Warhammer the Old World, as they said something about not merworming around, so if the merworm comes back there, I could see that happening, right? While I don't think that Creative Assembly are working too much with Games Workshop in terms of cross-promotion, it does feel sometimes that Games Workshop are going, hey, CA are doing this, so let's bring that back, right? Same thing with like War Wagons being mentioned in the roadmap for Games Workshop, and it's kind of pretty obvious there when you look towards the rulebook of Warhammer the Old World, where certain artwork from Warhammer 3 is appearing in the rulebook. Yeah, the Kislev art and the cafe art for some reason. I mean, they're playable races in the old world. Well, not just yet, but you know what I mean. It's the same artwork. It looks very different when you compare it to the normal Warhammer art from GW artists. Okay, we're looking towards the Dwarfs now, and I think they're actually done. Now, it's a massive shame because I'd love to see an engineering-style DLC, but yeah, technically, Malachi was engineering/Slayer stuff. I could see them getting some other content, maybe free content, or if they do some sort of like character pack, but stuff like Rune Golems, Rune Guardians, and so on, I think are pretty gone, especially since the whole steampunk aspect is moving very, very heavily towards Age of Sigmar, so I could see those steampunk dwarves, the Overlords, Caradron Overlords I think they're called, getting that type of stuff. Hey, you never know, things could change, but yeah, I don't know. Plus, it does look like Creative Assembly put a lot of work into the Dwarfs, not only in the patch in 5.0 with the rework, but in the subsequent patches when they added in the deeps and so on, right? My only real issue here is that the Dwarfs aren't done in terms of, like, the characters feeling unique, but those would be free content. So yeah, no more DLCs, but free content still comes out for them. It's just not free new content, like characters, units, and so on. I could be wrong. Again, character packs could happen. We don't know, but yeah. Okay, Grand Cafe, I think, could get multiple DLCs, because, you know, there's 2 more active dragon children, Li Dao and Yin Yin. The last DLC for Cafe introduced Yuan Bo, so it feels like they're going to go with the whole bringing in the 5 active dragon children, and obviously the Monkey King. All of them have been kind of hinted. There was very heavy emphasis when we were talking about Cafe and lore during the interviews and so on of, oh yeah, you know, there's 5 active kids, there's 5 of them. So it's like, oh, okay, likely that we're going to just get all 5. The Monkey King is also a big thing, so I expect that too. When you look at it, like, it just makes sense. It feels like they're really pushing towards Cafe, which is something that even Games Workshop said that they wanted to do to open up the market in the East. There are also quite heavy rumors that the army list for Grand Cafe is like the size of the Space Marine book, so yeah, there'd be a lot to play around with. I feel like we haven't seen enough just yet. So yeah, we could see maybe 3 more DLCs, maybe even just 2 and an FLC, but yeah, 1+ is a definite, just, I'm expecting that. Again, very important to say, it depends on Creative Assembly's speed when it comes to content releases, because everything's been kind of slow, but you know what I mean. Alright, Greenskins. So this one, originally I was going to put them in 1+ DLCs, but I'm putting them in 1 and done. So that means that whatever this next DLC is likely going to be the last of them. I don't know, I just feel like that's going to be a thing here. It's very odd, because I, in theory, could see a lot more DLCs happening. There's a lot of missing stuff, but they have been adding them as free units. So I feel like the Champions of Chaos for the Greenskins is kind of done now. Gorbad being the last thing, whatever units come in with them. There has been, some confirmation of units, I think, publicly? I'm not 100% too sure, but I feel like that's done. What I would have loved to see is a character as a Forest Goblin Lord in another DLC, but again, even I know that the Forest Goblins aren't that popular. Just because I want it doesn't mean that everyone else does. It would have just been nice to get all the different cultures. We do have a bunch of Forest Goblin units, you know, because they're mounted on the Arachnaroks, they're mounted on the Spider Riders, but if you have them on foot, it's literally just going to be a reskin. So if they're going to be able to do them for free, that just kind of works out, right? Alright, Kislev, I think, is going to get no more DLCs. I know that sounds really odd, but I feel like what they were doing when it came to Shadows of Change 2.0 was really scraping the barrel. It could just be that Kislev just has very little in terms of new units for Old World. So the roster for Kislev was taken for the roster for Old World, and it's still a fair amount for the tabletop when you start looking at unit variety and so on, but, like, yeah, it felt really, really forced in terms of just trying to scrape the barrel. So I think maybe they're just one and done. I mean, they've got 4 Legendary Lords, which isn't too bad. They've got a Legendary Hero, which, I mean, she's alright. It's just very difficult to come up with something, especially when the real estate is so small. I'm starting to think that the rumors were true, that the war in Eastern Europe actually just put a stop to Kislev production. It could actually be the case. Games Workshop tend to shy away for anything that could be seen as something else. Lizardmen, I feel, have 1 DLC left, and it's mostly because, well, you know, Tetueco would be kind of cool. He's a character that many people do love from the lore. And there's some stuff that could be added in, Kulchans and stuff like that. I feel like they could do something, and the only way that they're going to properly rework the Lizardmen is if it's attached to a DLC. We know that's a thing now, right? Where some things can be done in free patches because it doesn't require a lot of work. But let's be honest, the Lizardmen are in desperate need of a lot of work. They were popular enough in Warhammer 2 to get a shit ton of content, let's be honest there, right? Like a bunch of DLCs, some free LC Lords, free LC characters too, but I don't know, man, I feel like 1 more DLC and they're fully done would be just a great way to send them off. Obviously, it's important to notice here that when it comes to certain races, you know, with these DLCs being 1v1v1, while it looks like there's a lot in the one DLC and done. It's actually a lot smaller because you get them out in groups of 3. And I tell you what, I was honestly tempted to add in another row and just say not even CA knows at this point, which is in regards to Norska. I don't think anything is going to happen to them, but they keep insisting that something might happen. So yeah, maybe one DLC. I mean, in a perfect world, we'd get like a Tribes in the North situation, right? It's something that we've been talking about for a number of years. A mod kind of just came out of nowhere and did that too, and it looks like it works really well, but it definitely needs to happen. Something needs to happen, because Norska feels awful. They had a nice little change for Warhammer 3's launch, well, for Mortal Empires, but even then they still feel crap. Alright, Ogres I think are going to be done with this next coming DLC. There's really not so much that can be done for them, so I'm assuming if they have one DLC's worth of content, which is whatever this one's going to be called, again, it would be nice if Creative Assembly put the name out like they did for Thrones of Decay, but yeah, that's it. I don't think anything after that. Alright, Skaven, I think one more DLC and they're done, and that's literally Thankwall, Storm Fiends, Vermin Lords, just the end time stuff that's missing, a few things here and there for everyone else, but yeah, we know Thankwall's coming, he was confirmed back in the day of Warhammer 2, it's just, you know, we were told to wait, and here we still are. So yeah, the big end times DLC would likely finish off the Skaven, and that's pretty much done. Alright, so the Empire I feel could be 2. Maybe 2. So 1 is pretty much certain. It's the whole Cult of Ulrich. It's something with the whole Boris Todbringer will get his day. The problem is that Creative Assembly like to say that, and it just takes a long time. It's kind of like, you know, soon TM. But, yeah, Empire sells. It's very popular. They could squeeze out multiple DLCs because there's a lot of stuff that they could talk about. We could get like the Cult of Ulrich and then another one which would just be a huge character pack focusing around the other Elector Counts where it's not necessarily units, but it's just a bunch of characters, you know? I could see that happening. The Empire is stupid popular, so they could see the Empire being big money for them. I mean, hell, even Null was popular and it had some drama around it because of the repeaters being lost, which is a massive shame, by the way. Alright, the Tomb Kings. So hear me out here. I don't think the Tomb Kings are going to get any more DLCs directly for them, whereas I could see them getting DLC attached to them. If Nagash ends up being a character in Total War Warhammer 3, which I imagine they will do Nagash, it's big money for Nagash, you know, the mod is incredibly popular, he's a very popular character. I could see the last of the Tomb King stuff, like, you know, Apophis, the Scarab Lord, or even just like the Khemric Titan and so on being added in with Nagash for a good reason. I could see Nagash being his own distinction because he'd have access to Vampire Counts and Vampire Coast if they're going to follow the lore, or just Vampire Counts if they're just going to follow the tabletop. But yeah, I feel like he'll be separated by his own race in a very similar way that Daniel is separated, right? He's just a mono god. This would be mono undead, and I could see the last of the Tomb Kings like that. So yeah, they will benefit regardless, right? Vampire Coast, well, I think they're done. Yeah, I don't know if anything else is going to come for them. I feel like they really worked hard, let's be very honest here. The Vampire Coast as a playable race is really, really cool, and it's exactly what I always kind of imagined back in the day on the tabletop, because they never had their full army. They had a small army which was playable in 6th edition, that's pretty much it. And even then, you had to make the models yourself, you had to kit bash. But yeah, I think they're done for Warhammer 3, I think they're done in general. I think it's just very difficult to create that type of stuff, but I can't imagine it's easy going back and forth with Games Workshop's IP guys. So yeah, the only thing I would say is I'd love to see an update for the characters and a little once over for the race in general in terms of an update, but that's it, really. They're fine, they're good. Alright, Vampire Counts, at least one more DLC. This would be the whole Champions of Undeath that people have been asking for. You know, Neferata, Ushordan, Zacharias maybe. Zacharias would be kind of cool. That's what I'm hoping for. I mean, it could be possible we'll just get Neferata and it's done, but I feel like it's a lot of missed opportunities, because they could do it Champions of Chaos style, where not a lot of work has to go there, it's a lot of reused assets, but it is making 4 brand new unique factions, getting the last of the Bloodlines out, and allowing for a lot of replayability. So we won't know how popular Champions of Chaos actually was. I feel like it was a really good DLC, I really enjoyed it, mostly because there was loads of options, and it's a lot of different playstyles, but it came out at the same time as Immortal Empires, and Immortal Empires was going to have a massive spike of players anyway, so it's very hard to gauge player numbers and so on from there. I've seen people for it, I've seen people against it. I still think it's a very good DLC, and it's a shame that they still haven't explored this styling again. Warriors of Chaos, no more DLC but attached to someone else. This is something that's pretty obvious because, you know, Thrones of Decay and Shadows of Change have been doing that. They really just benefit from that, so it's nice to see Obviously, the Beastmen have been benefiting from that too. So it's really, really cool to see that happening often for racers, especially after a big DLC. You know, the Champions of Chaos stuff that we just talked about is huge. They were kind of complete there, and now they're just getting little bits and bobs to add to it. It's just adding spice to the mix. And lastly, the Wood Elves. So, yeah, I don't think they're going to get anything else. To be honest, they're in a pretty good spot. The rework was fantastic. They play very well. They've had a decent amount of content come out for them. I don't see them getting anything else. I don't know. It could be possible. I know some people might be saying the Eoneer and all that, but to be honest, the Eoneer is supposed to be like a sub-race, and I'm not counting sub-races here. If not, we could have had a lot more. Like, for example, you know, the Empire would be 3 DLCs because of halflings, and there'd be talk about the hobgoblins and so on, but I'm just going with what we have available, and that's it. Honestly, I think we're in a pretty good spot to see this game lasting a certain amount of extra time. I could see this game lasting like a number of years more, but it very much depends on what's going on with this. If DLC quickens up a little bit, if Sophia does help the production, then I could see DLCs coming out faster. It could just be like they're nearing the end, but I very much doubt it. I feel like they probably want to keep this running even alongside a hypothetical Total War 40k, because it's just extra money. They've lost a fair amount of money. I'm not saying this to be like mean against them and so on, but they have. So recuperating funds is probably quite important, and Sega are probably cracking the whip. I could see quite a lot, and I mean quite a lot of content just kind of mirroring. I mean, in a perfect world, we'd just see constant stuff, but every 8 months feels a little bit weird. I don't want to talk about the drought too much because it's obviously something that we're going to talk about in the future. Hopefully, you know, after whatever this next DLC is, but yeah. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of discussion. Again, this is all speculation regarding what's left in the setting, but yeah, I feel like it could be a fun little talk to have.